Have you ever noticed how something as simple as walking across a room or just bowing to a guest can change entirely depending on your underlying philosophy? It's genuinely fascinating. Welcome to this explainer on the Japanese tea ceremony and its various schools. Today, we're going to break down this ancient art form and see exactly how abstract philosophy physically shapes everyday tradition.
Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start with the spirit and history of tea, then explore the big three Sanzenke schools, break down their specific etiquette differences, look at a few other unique paths out there, and finally help you figure out how to find your perfect fit. Let's just dive right in.
Section 1. The spirit and history of tea. This is the true core of Sado.
Now what's really interesting here is how this completely redefines what we typically think of as tea. Sado, or the way of tea, isn't just about sitting down and drinking a hot beverage. It's an incredibly immersive, comprehensive art form. The whole thing is built entirely around heartfelt hospitality and a deep spiritual exchange between host and guest. Literally every single element, the architecture of the room, the carefully manicured garden outside, the exact utensils chosen, and even the culinary dishes served is meticulously fused together.
If we trace its roots, we can see how this practice evolved over centuries. It actually started out as a Chinese import, brought over alongside Zen Buddhism in the Kamakura period by a monk named Isai. Then, fast forward to the Muromachi period. While extravagant Chinese goods were all the rage, a man named Juko Murata decided to shift the focus. He established wabi-cha, which prioritized native Japanese utensils and a much simpler, spiritual connection. Finally, during the Asuchi Momoyama period, the legendary Sen no Rikyu came along and completed wabi-cha, laying the very foundation for the tea ceremony as we know it today.
All right, moving on to Section 2, the representative Sansenke, or the Big Three.
So after Sen no Rikyu passed away, his legacy didn't just survive, it multiplied. Descending straight from Rikyu's grandson, the lineage actually split into three dominant schools, collectively known as the Sansenke, and they each developed completely unique philosophical approaches. First up is Omoten Senke. This represents the original house, and they put a huge emphasis on strict tradition, formality, and very natural movements. Then you have Ura Senke, which is highly flexible and innovative. Because of that adaptability, they're actually the largest school today, expanding heavily into schools and even overseas. And lastly, we have Mushikoji Senke. These guys are all about rationality and simplicity, striving to express Rikyu's pure wabi-cha without a single drop of unnecessary waste.
Which brings us to Section 3. Differences in Sansenke etiquette. Let's look at 6 key differences in how they operate.
First up, literally, just walking on a tatami mat is an art form that changes depending on the school. Omoto Senke dictates a very deliberate 6 steps per mat. You might wonder, why? Well, it allows the host to carefully advance while keeping their body continuously facing the guest. It's a massive show of profound respect. Ura Senke, on the other hand, focuses on fluid, natural movement, so they use 4 or 5 steps per mat for a smoother walk. And Mushikoji Senke, they align with Omoto Senke, sticking to those deliberate 6 steps.
These differing styles are brilliantly illustrated when we look at bowing. Omote Senke commands a very deep, formal shin bow. Imagine the spine perfectly straight with fingers held closely together right in front of the knees. It is incredibly dignified. Juxtapose that against Ura Senke's softer, more natural so bow. For this one, the hands are spread slightly on the mat, kind of resembling the Japanese character for the number 8, which creates a slightly shallower, gentler bow overall. Next, let's talk about the fukusa. This is the silk cloth used for purifying utensils, and tradition dictates some pretty strict rules here. For women, Omoten Senke insists on a vermilion cloth, and it's always tucked into the left hip, no exceptions. But Ura Senke, reflecting that flexible nature we talked about, allows women to use red or vermilion and even opens the door to other colors as practitioners advance. Plus, Ura Senke and Mushakoji Senke practitioners tuck this cloth into their right hip, not the left. It sounds like a tiny detail, I know, but it entirely changes the flow of their physical movements.
The actual physical setup of the tea room and the tools shift too. For instance, during winter, the hearth where the water is boiled is traditionally cut into the floor on the left side of the host in Omote Senke. But Ura Senke prioritizes the ease of the host's movements, so they often allow the hearth to be cut on the right side. And when it comes to the tea whisk itself, Omote Senke prefers traditional smoked bamboo, whereas Ura Senke utilizes a whole variety of white and black bamboo whisks.
Now, perhaps the most visually striking difference is the tea itself. You can think of it a bit like your local coffee order. Omoten Senke prefers to lead the tea mostly unfoamed. This results in a dark, robust brew, kind of like a straight espresso where you really taste the deep, raw matcha.
Urasenke, meanwhile, whisks the tea vigorously to create a thick, creamy layer of fine foam. This makes it incredibly mild and beginner-friendly, almost like a matcha latte. And Mushikoji Senke, they sit comfortably right in the middle with a light foam.
Even the rhythm of eating the traditional sweets changes based on the school. In Omote Senkei and Mushakuji Senkei, the guest is generally served both the rich main sweets and the crisp dry sweets before the tea is even whisked, so you enjoy the confections fully first. Or a Senkei actually changes this rhythm up, specifically matching main sweets strictly to thick tea ceremonies and dry sweets to thin tea ceremonies.
Section 4. Other unique schools. Let's venture beyond the Sensenkei.
So, let's say you were a samurai or a powerful daimyo lord in historical Japan. You probably wouldn't practice the merchant-born Sansenkei styles. Instead, you'd likely practice something like the Yabuchi school. This features grand, honest, and highly dignified movements, perfectly fitting for a warrior. Or maybe the Sekishu school, which actually became the official tea ceremony of the Tokugawa shogunate. There's also Edo Senkei, which adapted traditional forms to be highly rational, functional, and totally stripped of excess to suit the pragmatic mindset of the Edo samurai.
Conversely, you have the stunning, graceful simplicity known as Kirei Sabi, found in the Enshu school. This school added a touch of brightness and gorgeousness to traditional wabi-sabi, making it a huge favorite among high-ranking daimyos and aristocrats. Contrasting beautifully with that is the Matsuo school. This was nurtured entirely within Kyoto's refined merchant class. It is highly elegant, incredibly beautiful in its tool handling, and actually remains massively popular with women today.
And for the absolute purists out there, schools like Sohen exist. Founded by a direct disciple of Rikyu's grandson, the Sohen school is dedicated to strictly preserving the incredibly quiet, austere, and profoundly simple spirit of Senno Rikyu's original vision. They thoroughly, and I mean thoroughly, reject any sort of showiness.
Finally, Section 5. Finding your perfect school. How do you actually choose your path?
With all these incredible options, the best approach, according to the sources, is highly practical. Step 1. Compare their philosophies. Do you want the strict tradition of Omoten Senkei, the accessible creaminess of Urasenkei, or maybe the grand dignity of a samurai school? Step 2 is absolutely crucial. You have to step inside a tea room. Tour classrooms, take a trial lesson, and just feel the atmosphere firsthand. And step 3 is assessing compatibility with the teacher, and let's be real, making sure the commute is actually manageable for you.
Because at the end of the day, what you should really take away from this explainer is that the right school isn't determined by its historical status or its size. It's simply the one where you feel comfortable, welcomed, and inspired to keep learning. It is all about your personal connection to the art.
We've seen how a simple bowl of tea can become a lifelong pursuit of art, hospitality, and philosophy. It literally reflects the very soul of the person serving it. So I'm going to leave you with this one thought as we wrap up. Tradition, innovation, or rationality? Which door will you knock on?